we will move on to 5. Actually, we'll move on to 6, because 5 has been deleted. Miscellaneous. A is a review of the 2009-2010 fiscal year audit with Cromwell Frieders, Mayor and Associates, PLC. And we have Jerry Mayer with us this evening. And thank you for being here. We appreciate it. You have the floor.
I have the floor.
And the table, and the chair.
Fishing, we went fishing, go right down the list. And it wasn't late. Anyway, I was just going to say, just kind of go through real briefly some procedures that we do and just kind of point out some changes in the audit report from the year before. And I first had a couple of my staff come over in October, November and go through the preliminary numbers to make sure like the cash and bank balance and utility billings was proper, payroll was proper, and then they completed like the annual financial report, that's due by December 1st. And then since you got the sewer project going on and there's federal funds involved, there's also what we call a single audit. And so then there's some extra federal funds testing, to do. And mostly it's compliance issues. Did you spend the money, for the purpose it was intended? It wasn't allowable cost. There's other things, and then the reports that you're sending into the government trace back to records. So I came back and did that like a little later after February.
Would the stimulus money have some new wrinkles in it for you?
Well, some of it was pretty much the same stuff, except for like they added what they call Buy America. That was the only thing new because I've done the wastewater treatment plants auditing before, and we kind of looked to make sure that the Davis-Bacon Act's complied with. And here we kind of relied a little bit on your having, Region 12, doing this for you. In our city, they don't have an outside contractor. They do, all their grant administration because they have a whole department. So it kind of gets a little harder there.
The state came in December and did a full audit of our status on de minimis, on Davis-Bacon, and on. So we've just gone through this rodeo just a couple of months earlier.
Yeah.
Aren't Snyder and Associates a little bit involved in that, making sure that...
They are working with the contractor on the de minimis portion of it. Fred Keston down at Region 12, through the administration portion of our grants, is working on the Davis-Bacon requirements and on the Buy American provisions. Actually, the engineer's also working with them on the Buy American provisions.
Because I thought he told us that was part of their job when they first started, was that they would keep us in mind.
Yep, and then I'm just auditing to make sure that they're monitoring that. So, and mostly like the numbers are matching. And so then when we get all done today, when everything's approved, then we also send in a copy, not only to the state, the state of Iowa, you send in a copy to the state. We also send in a copy to the federal government. They have a clearinghouse where all this, federal funds ought to go in, so I send a copy in there. And then I'll do that like tonight or tomorrow, and then I'll send Adam a copy, and then he has to sign off on it. Electronic filings. Everything goes PDF now. You don't send in paper copies. You just send it in electronically. And so that's kind of like I'm a little bit later than some years because I didn't get back here until February to finish up the same audit part. And then I was just going to tell you when we were here, we just made one journal entry or maybe two to reclassify a couple transfers. We approved some transfers at year end and they just got posted in the wrong account. So I have Sandy works with me and then she just helped your Sandy reclassify. But other than that, we didn't find anything, any material errors or any changes that weren't made. Excuse me. And then, speaking of your, I was going to kind of show you that Adam in the audit report. Then there's in the beginning there's a management discussion and analysis, which Adam prepares. Kind of compares.
Page 4.
Page 4. I was kind of point out page number 7 because that's like a good overall highlight of all the income and expenses, for the year, and just like rough numbers. It looks probably a little different than the reports you see. So you can see how the receipts went up from 1.6. This is just the governmental funds without, without the utilities. So you can see that the receipts went from 1.6 to 1.9 million, and that's really related to a couple grants. If you look under the capital grants, it's because there's airport grants included in here also, besides the housing grant. So what I thought was interesting, if you look at the disbursements, they went up from 1.5 to 1.7. But if you take off the grants, the 350,000, off the disbursements, you can see that looks like your expenses are going down a little bit, on your regular operations. So at first glance, it looks like they're maybe, way up, but if you take into account the extra, in and out, I think you do a good line job of holding down the expenses. And it might sound like, if you look down, it looks like you have $695,000 cash at the end of the year. And that might sound like a lot, but if you pay attention to okay, it's 1.7 million expenses for a year. That's not like a lot, a lot in balance. And then I was going to show you then on page, that relates to page, skip ahead to page 12. You see there's at the bottom of the page is 694,000, which is just the governmental part. And there's only 115,000 that's basically unrestricted. Out of that 690,000 cash, it's restricted for like local option sales tax or trust and agency levy or the debt service or different things. And that's what you kind of get from cash balances from Sandy and Adam each month to kind of show you what your cash balances by fund. I thought that's kind of interesting to kind of point that out. So. And on page 8 is just your business type activities or all your utilities.
Is the garbage under the non-major, or that garbage?
Yes.
How come that's called non-major and the other ones are major, or labeled?
It's a percentage-based auditing. We spend more time on what we call major funds. And there's a formula by governmental auditing standards that determines what's major. Basically, it's the ones that has the biggest percentage of receipts, overall receipts. It's not that you don't look at the non-major stuff, because when I look at utility bills,
Well, non-major would be everything else.
yeah. We emphasize maybe the bigger items a little bit, more. But like I said, we like to take a sample of the smaller funds too, just to make sure that all the utility bills are getting recorded in the right fund. If it's a garbage bill, it's being recorded in garbage and not electric or sewer. And then like on page 8, I'm just going to show you that the receipts have increased from 3.2 to 3.8, and that's because you have the bond proceeds and everything on the sewer project. And on page 9, then it shows that your debt did increase because the sewer bond, has been issued as of June 30th, and I know it's quite a lot more by now. And what's interesting is I called this Iowa Finance Authority, and I asked them, because you have the forgivable loan portion, and I said, well, do I show that as debt, or, because it's forgivable, and they said, right now you show it as debt until it's forgiven, so until the sewer project's all completed and everybody signs off, then that portion of the debt's not forgiven. So what I did is, back in the schedule 3, which is way back on page 37 and 38, I split out the forgivable and non-forgivable portion.
Roughly this time next year is roughly when that would happen.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I said, well, am I supposed to show that? Or because I suppose that if they don't approve it, it's not going to be forgiven. So.
We'll still with that.
But said right now it's still a debt. So. And that was another thing that was new to point out, so I wanted to point that out. And few footnote on page 25, which doesn't have anything to do with like your cash basis, but it's something called other post-employee benefits. Have you ever heard anybody talk about OPEB? And there's a new, it's a liability that's supposed to be recorded on the books. But because you guys are cash basis, I don't have to record anything on the city's books. Just have to do a new disclosure. And that relates to some, when you retire and have early retirement, you might retire early, you can allow people to stay on your health insurance. You know, even though they pay a COBRA or pay their share, because you have to allow everybody to stay on. Insurance premiums are higher than what they would have been if you don't allow them to. And so it started like way back when, and I think City of San Diego had some promises to all the people that said we're gonna, pay you, all your health insurance. But then they didn't realize that all this stuff was gonna escalate, and they had left off at $500,000 of debt off their books. Well, they said, yes, we'll pay you all your health insurance, but didn't realize how much it was really gonna cost them. And so then, the governmental accounting standard boards, they revised some of the auditing standards, so all the accrual basis cities, or counties, and the state have to, all accrue this liability on your books, and you have to hire actuaries. But they did do the state auditor's office went through and figured out that cash basis doesn't have to, actually accrue any liability, but just disclose, the policy. And then going through all these schedules, we did figure out, if you look on page 31 and 32, the city did end up being over budget in a couple categories. And I discussed this with Adam before. We went to publish that annual report December 1st. And it had to do with just two things. It was actually the airport project and housing project. And the reason is probably because we didn't catch it first because they're in outside checking accounts that are on the computer printout, because the computer does automatically shows you your budget variance and see if you're over budget or not. I think you budget for everything. That outside checking account still in the city books. And so I was here when you were working on the budget hearings for next year, so and so for sure you got me in this time. So. And so I just had that as a comment. I don't think there is any big, there's no, I guess, what do you call it? You don't get fined or anything for being over budget, but there's some talk about, technically by the Court of Iowa, you're not supposed to spend money if you don't have authority for it. And it's like the total money spent was way under budget, it's just like program. Just like, just program it was. And the only other comments we had then was, being over the budget, and then I put in here like segregation of duties, because even with, having a couple people, you still have one person doing kind of a couple sides of the transaction. Or we do a little extra audit testing, I kind of go through it and trace through some backup, like the pool receipts coming in, trace through some, like utilities all the way through, make sure they get posted like somebody's account, and the balance goes forward. I try to do some other testing to make sure that I could, I didn't see any problems. Because unfortunately, once in a while, there's stuff going on, out there in the real world. And then the other thing is I just, we did notice that there was one bill that wasn't published in your minutes, and it was an automatic electronic deposit for the interest on the SRF note. See, that's, a check isn't written for, it just comes automatically out of your bank account. So it's kind of hard to remember to list those as claims published. And so I did add, also then I do think that you probably should list, like all those bills that you approved all these drawdowns, I think you probably should list those as a claim paid too, because technically the Code of Iowa says you should list all claims paid. So you've approved the claim, and then when you pay, just list it as a paid bill. And I think Sandy, kind of the same comment last year where the gas bills were like EFT, electronic. And I think she missed a couple of those, because like I said, there's no check written for it. Well, it's kind of hard to remember all that stuff if you don't have a check register. But that's pretty much all the comments we had, then just basically just over budget and just maybe add a couple claims and, segregation duties, so. Otherwise, we didn't have any problems, everybody was very courteous and
What would like to
helpful.
hear?
Helpful, so it wasn't like you asked for something, they found it. So does anybody, do you have anything else you want me to bring up? Sandy or Adam, or any council have any questions?
And your recommendation was a motion to accept
Yes.
the accounting report, the auditor's report.
Okay. Do you have any? Okay. Second, call for a vote.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Frederick?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for
Okay.
taking your time to come
Okay.
and explain
You're
it to
welcome.
us. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right, we thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Have
Good
a
luck
safe
with your-
trip home.
Yes.
A lot better, easier this time. I forgot about that with all the east-west roads, last year.
Yeah, I remember it was pretty nasty.
Mhm.
And it was really dark. Actually, you must have been here at a little different time.
Maybe I came in February.
Yeah, it was really dark, and you were starting out on icy roads in the dark.
Mhm. Well, you have
wasn't
sunglasses on today.
That's a nicer problem.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you next year.
Okay.